Dear church, let's talk about racial division and reconciliation. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. I've got a special guest with me, a college friend. I say college friend. I mean, we're still friends, right, Maurice? I mean,
yeah, no doubt about that.
Became friends in college, and so proud of you, man, for what you're doing. Maurice is the co-offensive coordinator at Liberty University and spent some time at Ole Miss. We met at Arkansas State University. He was a big-time player, and I was a groupie, but we got to be friends there, and been a great friendship. And I asked him to come on today because I really want to get your insight into all the mess and chaos that's going on in our culture and how we can make sense of everything. Before we do that, though, you know how I love to talk football. And
No question.
like to talk a little bit about that. Before we dig too deep, though, Maurice, tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know, and just about your family and everything that's going on with you.
Well, like you said, my name is Maurice Harris, and my title is co-offensive coordinator. But my job is being a husband and a father
Good.
to a husband to LaQuisha Harris. We've been married. It'll be 25 years, June 24th. That's crazy.
Wow.
When
Congratulations.
I know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Thank you so much. And Aramy and Cortland are my daughters. Aramy, she's 23. They're both, ironically, are seniors at the University of Mississippi at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And they'll both be graduating next year. So we're very excited about that,
Yeah.
But, I've been coaching now, going on almost 25 years now,
Wow.
and it's been an incredible feeling. It's been awesome to just do life with these young men on a daily basis, interact with them. And our goal, man, is to teach them how to be the best husband, father, and man they could possibly be.
Yeah.
And we truly believe if we do those things, they're going to be good football players.
Absolutely. And I know you have a guy at the helm, Hugh Freeze, who very much believes that. And I know you think a lot of him. And I think that's one thing that I really wanted you to talk about first is just the overall approach to bringing in these young men and what it is that you're trying to accomplish while you're there. Winning games is great, and you guys are at the Division I level, beat Rutgers last year, had a great season. I got to watch you a couple times on TV. They put the camera on you. I was like, hey, I know that guy, and one of the bright young minds in college football today and all that. But what is it that you're really trying to get across these young men? Because I know it's bigger than just winning games.
Yeah, so, Coach Freeze, he charges all of our coaches to one simple charge, man: capture the hearts and mind of our players. And how do you go about doing that? Well, it's attacking it from a holistic perspective, spiritually, socially, academically, and athletically.
Yeah.
And we hit on each one of those, starting with the spirituality of the young man first, and teaching them, like I said earlier, how to be a good husband, good father, good man, socially getting involved in the community,
Sure.
Whatever your strengths are, make sure that you're utilizing those. They come to school to get an education, and let's make sure not only that you come and leave with a degree, but more importantly, you get a degree that's going to help you further whatever cause that you have in life. And then from a football perspective, to be highly competitive as possible, because when they're on the field, of the game, man, I'm their biggest supporter. You know
Sure.
what I mean? I'm high-fiving where to go during game times. But in practice, man, it's hard. You know what I mean? In practice, it's very demanding. And there's a standard that we're not going to lower at practice. So when you get in the game, it should be easy.
Yeah.
But I believe those standards create healthy habits for the rest of our lives. Coming off the ball hard, finishing your blocks, things of that nature, catching the ball to the tuck, just those small things that create the winning edge in football. We can apply those small things, just like when I'm a husband, make sure when I come home that I don't land a plane, that I go in and spend some quality time with my wife and my children, even though I may have had a rough day. They want to spend time with me, and it's our obligation to do that. I truly believe that we're the first pastors and teachers of our home. So we have to make sure that we're doing those small things on a daily basis to impact their lives. So those, some of the things that we teach on a daily basis, just impacting those young men from a holistic perspective,
Yeah.
to help them to become positive, productive citizens to society.
Absolutely. And I'm afraid that doesn't happen as much as it should. I mean, we see some great coaches out there today. It's not all negative. We see some great coaches out there today, but we've all had good coaches. We've all had bad coaches, and the coaches you appreciated the most were the ones that took an interest in you as an individual. And I'm sure that on the recruiting trail, you run into some mothers, fathers,
Yeah.
grandmothers that, I mean, they're placing that child's livelihood in your hands, and you're vowing to take care of them, not just win games. I bet that's a pretty massive responsibility.
It is. And that's why I encourage anybody that's going through the process to go to the school that's best for you.
Yeah.
There's life after signing day. That's when you have to do life with whomever you choose to do life with.
Yeah.
And my question has always been, all right, what are you looking for in your college experience? I have a list of questions that I ask every single recruit.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you looking for in your college experience? What are going to be the key factors to help you make this decision? Because I have no doubt you don't get into college coaching unless you care about players. You don't get, you have to care and love players. But I do have a question about what is guiding your moral compass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what helps you make those decisions that's going to impact this young man, not just for these 4 to 5 years that he's with you, but those decisions and the way you choose to operate your program is going to impact this young man for the next 40 to 50 years of his life.
Yeah.
And with that being said, I really think parents have to be really, really careful about who they're placing their son with and deciding on where they're going to go for their college experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. So I believe, and you can agree or disagree with me on this, but I've always believed, I was a coach before I got into preaching. I believe sports is a microcosm of life in a lot of ways. There are things we learn in sports that carry over into life, like unity, teamwork, all those kind of things. So let's jump into the discussion with that. Tell me what it is. You're getting young men from all different backgrounds, all different places in the United States, but all different backgrounds and upbringings. How do you fuse all that together? I mean, do you have situations where it's more difficult and you have to talk through things, or do y'all do team building activities and things like that? And of course, I'm not trying to dance around it. I mean, obviously, you've got white players and black players on the team.
Yes.
How do you fuse all this together to make it work? And is that ever a problem? And if it is, what do you do?
So first of all, I think we're unique in a way that we bring many people together for one common goal.
Yeah.
And that's to win. You have 12 opportunities that are guaranteed. You think about this. You work all year long for 12 opportunities.
Yeah.
So we're coming together for one specific goal, to win those 12 opportunities. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter what your race is, background, no matter where you come from, we're coming together for one common opportunity. All right. One common goal. Okay. With that being said, how do we get them all on the same page? First of all, majority of them that come there are very driven from an athletic standpoint. So they have some common ground.
Right.
Okay. All right. And with that being said, they have common ground. That brings camaraderie. All right. To begin with. All right. But we do other things to help them out as well. Okay. Where they have to depend on one another. So in the off season, we have accountability groups.
Okay.
All right. So in those accountability groups, if you have one of your teammates, and we mix the team up now, it's not receivers with receivers, it's receivers with linebackers and DBs and things of that nature. So that helps them not only to know the guys that they play with and work out with on a daily basis, but also their teammates as well. So those accountability groups, we mix and match those positions. All right. So if one of your teammates in your accountability group misses a workout or misses a class or is late for a study hall, appointment or tutoring appointment, then that whole it has to run. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now they're holding each other accountable, because we draft them as coaches, and you know how it is with any draft. All right,
Hmm.
you're gonna start with the high draft picks, the guys that are most accountable, that are doing the things they're supposed to be doing, to the least accountable. You know what I
Sure.
mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So you got a huge range, but the ones that are most accountable, all right, are responsible for helping those guys who are least accountable to become accountable. You know what I mean?
Sure.
All right. And also within those accountability groups, okay, we bring them over to our home. We eat dinner with them. We show them the love that they should receive from a coach, in my opinion. But also, too, we get involved in the community. We have a community projects for those guys, community service projects for them to get involved with the community. So they get an opportunity to see how it feels to give back. Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then that's when, you get to know one another, and then you can start asking some of the tough questions. It could be, why do you wear gold teeth? Okay. I remember this one time I learned a huge lesson, a huge lesson. So this one kid by the name of, man, I went on him. He had the dreads, the gold teeth, all the tats, and he's looking like something, just that's not what we think that an ordinary young man probably should look like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So, and then I talked to him about, who are you representing? You're representing your family. You're representing me. You represent me as an African American man. And man, and then I said, why do you have those gold teeth in your mouth? I just went in on him. Okay. He pulled them out, right?
I'm laughing
He
because I can
had,
see you doing this.
yes, he had no teeth underneath,
Wow.
zero.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And you talk about somebody feeling this big.
Yeah.
So before I judge him, let's get to know his story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he got into a fight and someone knocked his teeth out. So he had the gold teeth, all right, the plates to cover up his teeth being knocked out because he couldn't afford to get any dentist work to get them repaired. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Right.
So that taught me a good lesson. Before I start to judge, now let's get the whole story. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Let's talk, let's converse, let's ask tough questions. And then when we ask those tough questions, we can find out what's real, and we can start to dispel some of these myths and stereotypes when we get back into our small groups that we kind of hang with.
Yeah, and you made a really good point there that kind of confirms something that I've been thinking, is that when you take it and you expand the lens from, a football setting like you're in, and you look at life as a whole and what's happening in our United States of America, you see maybe a failure to listen, but also we want to start the conversation at 10. We don't want to start at 1 and work our way. I mean, let's start with civil discourse, and let's try to figure out where each of us are coming from. But we want to operate on the extremes, and that's never
Yeah.
a good place to be, because
Yeah.
I said this to Mayor Williams last week, and he agreed, and I'm sure you would as well. But I mean, we operate on these extremes, and look, to burn down somebody's business, that's wrong. What happened to George Floyd? That's wrong. Absolutely. And both
Yeah.
those things can be true at the same time. So let's focus the conversation on what can be done to move forward. And I want to ask you a very broad, probably a tough question, but very broad. What can we do? I mean, what can happen in order to make this to where we come to a place where there's not so much division and more reconciliation?
Again, I truly believe that the courage to ask the tough questions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And being willing to sit down at the table and let's talk it out. Let's not get upset. Let's talk about, why do you feel the way you feel?
Yeah.
Okay. And then if I get an answer that I really don't like, not take it personally. This is how he's feeling. He's feeling this way for a certain reason.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then um, why? When we ask why, we have to delve into certain areas that may be hurtful for us. If someone is a racist, then why are you a racist?
Yeah.
Okay, and then where did that come from? And then It may be you were born that way, and people that you truly love, they probably played a huge part in that, and you have to address some old issues that you just kind of finally realized that you had. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, but the number one thing that I think we're all missing, all right, number one, building men of God, okay? And what I mean by that, if we just follow the greatest commandment, to love the Lord with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and to love our neighbor as ourselves, that'll solve 90% of our problems. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So we have that mentality as we're speaking with one another. I think that will help us to communicate properly. And then once we get all the information, man, let's go back to our small groups. We had one of our players talk about when he was, coming back from Florida into Lynchburg, how certain people, would look at him a certain way because he had dreads and things of that nature. Well, one of our, he was a black player. One of our white players said, well, I know DJ is not like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though he may look that way, he's a law-abiding citizen. He's a good student. He's about to graduate. He's a hard worker on the field and off the field. So I can vouch for him. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. And on the flip side, one of his uncles would say, well, when you go back, man, make sure that you're careful up there. You know what I mean? Watch out for, some of the white people. Well, he said, well, all of them aren't like that. You know what I mean? Some the guys I trust the most are some of the coaches that are there. The guys I play with, I trust them immensely. You know what I mean? So they aren't all like that. All right. So when we have these tough conversations, we're able to go back and advocate for each other, and hopefully that will bring about harmony.
Yeah, and you said, you were telling me that story the other day, and then you said something that was a real eye opener to you as one of your white players, saying, "I feel like I have to do extra in order to show that I'm not a racist because of where I'm from."
Yes. Yeah, and to me that was very eye opening, because that never came across, anything that I ever thought of. You know what I mean? And for him to say that, and then to follow it up, not only with, this is the way I feel, but even more than that, how can I help make a difference? And the main thing that we talked about is just communicating with your teammates.
Yeah.
All right. On both sides of the fence. So, yeah, but that was very eye opening once he said that.
Yeah. I grew up in a community that was not diverse. I think it is more now, but it wasn't when I was growing up. And when we were in college, I asked you, you said something about, what are you doing tonight? I said, I'm going to the big basketball game in town. It's a big rivalry. And I said, you ought to go with me. And so we're driving down there. And you remember the question you asked me. Yeah. You said, will I be the only black person there? And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, you probably will be, and you said later you weren't, that the referee was black. There were two. The referee was black. But, that's when it kind of hit me. This is different for you than it is for me. And I think what you said a while ago is very important, is we always want to start with this painting with a broad brush, well, he's got dreadlocks, so he must be a criminal, or whatever it may be. Or he's from a certain area, so he must be, a racist. But when you get down to the level of talking and exercising some grace and living by the great grace command, love the Lord your God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, love your neighbor as yourself, then you really get a conversation started, because you and I were able to have those discussions, and there were things that I never really thought of. But I think that's the key, is we want to start at different places. We want to start by rolling our eyes and saying, well, look, I've never owned a slave, so, I can't be held accountable. No, listen to the conversation. Listen to what's being said. Black lives matter. Yes, all lives matter. Yes, I understand, but listen to the conversation. Just listen to what we have to say. And And again, we can't operate on the extremes. We do have to focus the conversation and be logical and reasonable, which a lot of the conversation's not, because the news is not helping us.
No,
Partisan politics is not helping us. And
no
so
doubt.
we've got to narrow down the conversation and be logical and reasonable and just say, here's where we're coming from. Here's where we're coming from. Don't get offended. Let's talk. And I think that was a very good point. Maurice, I think all of this really, if we would exercise more grace, if we could be a
Oh yeah.
people people that are promoting God in everything that we do, I think that, changes things dramatically. And I know you do that, you being a Christian man, that's how you approach all this. The pandemic.
Well, and
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and that's something that I had to learn over time. When I first got into coaching, all right, it was all about my career. You know what I mean? So I was a football player slash Christian, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, football coach slash Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And it didn't really hit me until 2003 when we had this player by the name of Neil Williams. And no matter what we did, we could not reach him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We rolled him, we ran him, we suspended him. And he was a young, talented individual. In the ninth grade, had a 20 on the ACT. I mean, in the ninth grade,
Yeah.
so talented, smart, but we couldn't reach him. And something hit me and said, man, take him to church. And boom, that's when I got it, man.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
you don't teach and coach just to further your career and win football games. You teach and coach to impact my kingdom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not okay, Christian is who I am. I am a Christian.
Yeah.
My occupation is a coach. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think if majority of us had that mentality, I'm a Christian first politician. That's a politician. Or I'm a Christian that's a teacher. Or I'm a Christian that's a doctor or a nurse or whatever you may have. If we had that mentality going first, man, a lot of our problems would be solved. But too often it's flipped.
Yeah, right. And even in this discussion, I'm a white Christian. I'm a black Christian.
Oh yeah.
Those kind of things. No, first and foremost, our identity is tied up in Christian, and then that affects everything else. Now, that doesn't mean, and I know that this conversation gets brought up sometimes. I'm just colorblind. I don't see color. No, you need to see color. And you need to understand that I'm unique and I'm different from you, and that's okay. But I don't want to just be known as, our mayor last week said, I don't want to just be known as the first black mayor in Abilene, But at the same time, he said, I know I want you to be able to see that, the color of my skin and that. But at the same time, I'm a Christian first. And that
No question.
that affects everything that I am and everything that I do. And like you just said, I thought it was really well stated, is football coach is my occupation, but my
Yes.
identity is wrapped up in a son of God. And I think that's a really good point. And man, how different these conversations would be if we start there rather than what angers us. Now, I mean, I do think that there is reason to be angry. I do think that. I heard a sermon recently by an African-American preacher who was talking about how be angry yet do not sin. And I thought he did a really good job hashing that out and relating it to the current crisis going on in our culture. I know that because of the pandemic, you guys have been unable to gather with the players.
Yes.
But are you receiving text, about this? Have you approached this with some of your players and how to respond? And what has been some of the advice that you give?
I believe you have to. You have to, not just these issues, but any issue that comes up. From definitely, what happened with Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd. But whatever issue that they may be dealing with, you have to know them well enough to know when they're hurting, and just like your own child, know when they're having problems, so you can address these things.
Yeah.
And so we do a couple of things. Number one, to answer your question, yes. As soon as it happened, we addressed it per position. Each position coach addressed their own position.
Yeah.
And then Coach Freeze went in the next day to. No, it was 3 days later. All right, because we discussed it as a staff, and then he wanted to make sure that we had time to set the meeting up for him to get with our guys.
Yeah.
3 days later to interact with these young men. So I thought it was awesome. It was an amazing time. Coach Freeze opened up the floor for any kind of question that you may have, anything you wanted to state that was on your heart and mind at that time. So he did an awesome job with that. And basically, what he did was really just listen.
Yeah.
All right, listen, and wanted to know how were they impacted uh, on our campus in Lynchburg, and then how are they impacted from a national scene. So that conversation, started some in-depth conversations with him and some of our players, and I thought it was very, very beneficial. But another thing that we do just to get to know our guys on a more intimate basis. Every week we have individual meetings with our players.
Yeah.
And yeah, we talk about a range of things, academics to how to treat their girlfriends. If they don't have a girlfriend, what do you look for in a girl? How you doing here from a social standpoint? How's your roommate situation? The way that we capture their hearts and minds is getting to know them and what pushes their buttons individually. There's not a cookie cutter way of impacting lives. We got to find out what really gets you going, and in a lot of ways we really want to find out, what's your why?
Sure.
What's that one thing that gets you going in the morning when you don't really feel like it?
Absolutely.
What is that? And then two, what are your dreams, goals, and aspirations? And once we find out those things, man, we can have laser focus on helping you reach those dreams, goals, and aspirations.
Sure.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure that you're in a unique position to deal with this in a way that a lot of people can't, and promote. I say that. I mean, how much are you able to promote God? A biblical response, the gospel. How much are you able to promote that? I mean, now correct me if I'm wrong. Liberty University
Yes.
is it's affiliated with. Is it the Baptist Church?
That's a really good question. What its affiliation is?
Yeah.
I know it's Christian beliefs.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So it's a little bit easier here than most places that I've worked for.
Yeah.
And so we start each meeting with what we call play the man. You know what I mean? What does a godly man look like? You know what I mean? And we'll take, different examples. It really came from Mark Battison's book called Play the Man.
Okay.
That's where it came from. Okay. And then, once we get through the book, or once we have finished the book, then we go into just different parts of it. Okay. Play the man. What does a godly man look like? What does a godly husband look like? A godly brother look like? Playing the man that God wants us to play. Okay. So we attack those things. But the difference being here as opposed to other places, we can go in and don't have to ask about it. Coaching at other schools that I've been to, we had to say, look, this is how I'm going to start each meeting. Okay. And if you want to be a part of it, you can sit here. If you don't, then you can get up and I'll tell you when I'm done.
Yeah.
And I've never had a player to say, I don't want to be a part of it.
Really?
Yes, they all want to be a part of it. And also, too, a difference here, when we talk about specific things, especially when we're on camera, we can use book, chapter, and verse.
Yeah.
All right. It's crazy. When I wanted to use that when I was on camera at other places that I've worked, I just said the verse and, it was biblically based. But a lot of times the people who were filming it, they didn't know where I was coming from, so it didn't get cut out, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah. They just didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know. You know what I mean? So
that's good. So you're in a unique position to be able to share some of those things. And this is kind of off topic, but on topic too. I've always wondered this. The recruiting side of things, I almost left the high school ranks and got into being a GA at the college level and then hopefully coaching in college. And of course, my career path went a different direction. But recruiting fascinates me. So do you have, I'm sure you do, but you're not just looking for the 5-star recruit that can, catch, run, do all those things. What is it in your mind that you're looking for that athlete that you want to bring into your program? Because I think I know the answer, but I know with you, character counts a whole lot. But what is it that you're looking for specifically?
All right. First of all, what catches our attention is if he can play.
Yeah.
Okay. So if he can play, that catches our attention first and foremost. And then what kind of player is he? All right. And that's when the character piece comes into play.
Yeah.
Okay. And not saying that we won't take a player with some character flaws. All right. Especially if you see what situation he's coming from, whether it was a single parent home or no parents, or if he came from two parents, if he was entitled, you know what I mean? And he felt that way. And so, but yeah, character matters immensely because those small things that the foundation of who you are, that's what's going to get you through a tough practice, a tough game, tough situations. And if they have some substance about themselves, or you can add to that substance, then not only is he going to be a good football player for you, but he's going to be a good husband and a good father and a good, co-worker, a good business owner for someone else. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those things are very important. And I'm not saying that, because you think about this, some of these young men, when they're on Twitter, they don't know that they're doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
All right. So, and I tell them all the time, Chris, I'm 47 years old. I'm very direct with the guys that I recruit. Man, you don't need more homeboys. You don't need more friends.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm going to be friendly and we're going to love you, but you need men that's going to hold you accountable.
Right.
You got me. You have enough friends.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, man, that's what we come to them with. And if they put something on Twitter that is not beneficial for them and their brand, and I say, well, look, you need to take that off, okay?
Yeah.
And if he does, that's the kind of kid we want to work with.
Yep.
And if he doesn't, we don't want to work with that kid.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes they just don't know.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're trying to expect kids because they're great athletes or something to be at a higher level. When I was coaching, I was an assistant coach at, my hometown, and we had a 7-footer, and he went to Ole Miss, by the way, but this 7-footer, John Ingstrom was his name. And John, if you're watching, hello. But John was a big guy, 7 foot, and everybody assumed that because he was big, he was also ultimately, more mature than everybody else. And, he was a 16, 17-year-old kid. And I think we expect so much. I mean, their brains aren't even fully formed, and we're expecting them to know how to act and how to, I think, sometimes we've got to give a lot more grace than we want to. And I certainly don't agree with this digging up tweets from, 3 or 4 years prior and holding people to that. I think that's a recipe for disaster. Let me ask you this, Maurice. Talk a little bit, because I know we've talked about it when we were in college even, but if you don't mind, how have you handled growing up in Memphis? I know you've been an object of racism at times. How do you handle that? What is your approach? And you don't have to get specific if you don't want to, but I mean, just what's kind of your overall approach?
I think I probably mostly dealt with it from, what we term in the Black community, DWB, driving while Black. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And, when you're driving a newly modeled car that's very expensive and they see you driving it, I remember being pulled over like 4 times in 1 year and for doing absolutely nothing, didn't receive a ticket. I truly believe, these guys saw me in this vehicle and thought something that I was doing something that I shouldn't have been doing, basically. You know what I mean? Because in recruiting, man, you just go through a lot of small towns, you're driving very expensive vehicles, and I was pulled over. And then when they found out what I was doing, then I was okay to go, basically. This one guy, and this one really bothered me. I was driving in Tennessee, and he said that he was on a call somewhere. He had his lights flashing, sirens and everything going. He was on a call somewhere, going somewhere. He said that I didn't get over quick enough for him.
Uh-huh.
All right. So you mean to tell me that you're going to stop your call to pull me over?
Yeah.
That made zero sense to me if you were in hot pursuit going somewhere.
Right.
But the same love, the same grace that God has shown me, I want to show other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. And that's kind of what I live by. I I've learned not to qualify sin or give it a rank,
Yeah.
and saying that just because, you're a murderer or you said a white lie, you know, God sees it all the same. Now the consequences are different.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
But in God's eyes, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that being said, I know how wonderful, man, that our Lord and Savior has been to me.
Yeah.
The grace, the mercy, the compassion, the love that He shows to me on a daily basis. And if I call myself a part of Him, a part of His family, how can I not show that same mercy and grace to someone else? You know
I,
what I mean?
yeah. We're still the
Yeah.
greater debtor, aren't we? At the
Yeah.
end of the day, we're still the greater debtor, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you would agree with this. If we could just have the conversation, if we could just start the conversation there instead of this is what you've done or this is what, and pointing the finger back and forth, how much different that would be. We were laughing about this the other day when I called you to set this up. One of the things that you and I, when we'd hang out together in college, is the show Martin was big then.
Oh yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Martin Lawrence, we'd watch that show. And of course, I thought it was hilarious. You did too. But one of the things that it did is it started conversations with us. And growing up in a predominantly white community with very little to no diversity, I didn't even realize some of these things were an issue.
Yeah.
And probably never would have thought about it had we not, met. And that started the conversation. You were always very, very open, very transparent, and also very willing to listen. And I think that is key in all this. When I see this going on in our culture, I think, man, if you could listen like Maurice did, if you could start with, the Great Command and how much different that this would be. I mean, just exercising some grace there and not starting the conversation at a level 10, but starting it at a more, reasonable, logical level. I mean, I think that's really kind of what you're saying in all this and how that would make such a huge difference in going forward. And I do think that football is a microcosm, sports is a microcosm of life. And so how you guys are handling this, hopefully is going to seep into the culture that these young men affect, right? That's the hope anyway.
Definitely. I truly believe that it is and already is starting to happen with more intentionality. You know what I mean?
Right.
Instead of assuming that he's okay. No, let me find out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
All right. Let me find out what's really going on with him. Okay. And then the right setting to do it in. You got me? So I think that I'm talking about us specifically on our team, that this situation has really opened up the lines of communication, opened up hearts, opened up minds to say, you know what we have currently been doing is not as effective as we thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's make sure that we have more intentionality, that we're checking on one another, that we're talking to one another, that we're having these tough conversations, even, with our children, I tell my girls in particular, one thing that COVID has allowed them to come up and visit with us. My oldest was here 3 months and my youngest, she was here a month and a half, but engaging in conversation and just kind of hearing them, you know what I mean? Listening to them.
Yes.
And, where they're coming from and where their heart is has really helped over time me to understand them better. You know what I mean? And that's the same way with our players and us hearing them and then them hearing one another has really helped.
Yeah. But every time we have that conversation, it seems that we're going, yeah, but, just listen. Right. Just sit back and listen and take it in. And I think that would make a huge difference. So before we let you go, this is kind of a heavy conversation. So let's lighten it up a little bit. Tell us about, you had a great season last year. Like I said, beat Rutgers, had some other quality wins. What's the season look like coming up? What do you think?
Well, I feel really good about it. We were 5 practices in to spring ball. And I thought that was great competition on both sides of the football, going back and forth. I really like where we are offensively speaking. From pretty much every position has quality So that creates competition every single day, that you cannot come out and not be ready, focused, and prepared to go and practice at your highest level. And iron sharpens iron, man. And the better we are, the better we practice, the more we compete against one another. When we get into the games, we're going to be used to those things.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited about it. I can't wait to get going. Our guys, our returners, they got back the 1st of June. Our signees, they just got here yesterday. So, we're full steam ahead right now. We're having Zoom meetings with them. We can meet with them 8 hours a week. And that's been awesome.
Yeah.
The Zoom meetings have really allowed us to slow things down and ask more questions than it would be typically, because you're trying to get so much information in when you're installing offense and things of that nature, that a lot of times you don't have time on the back end for questions to help them make sure they conceptualize the whole scheme. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
now we're able to slow it down, and we can ask those questions in between. And I was even telling, Coach Fleming, the guy that he's an Arkansas State grad, by the way.
Oh, there you go.
He works with us. Yeah, he works with us. That moving forward, man, I'm just going to slow it down. Now, I think we probably should install it this way as well. Just slow it down so they can get a really good grasp of what we're doing and how we plan to accomplish it.
Absolutely. And it's for people who maybe haven't been keeping up with Liberty football, made the move to Division I, 2 or 3 years ago, I guess?
Well, this was our second season.
Okay.
FBS. Okay, our first season eligible to go to a bowl game, and we actually went to a bowl game and won and beat Georgia Southern. So it was awesome.
Yes.
This season, to come in not only to go to a bowl game, but to go to one and win, it has been awesome. And a lot of times, I've been spoiled. I've been to several bowl games, the Sugar Bowl, Peach Bowl, New Year's Six bowls.
Yeah.
And but there were 3 years that we didn't go to one. You know what I mean?
Right.
And man, just to get back to postseason play was awesome.
What has been your signature moment in coaching? If you could pick one, what has been like the best moment that you've had as a coach?
As a coach.
Now, a lot of people don't know you were head coach at your alma mater at Whitehaven for a few years too, and they were really good. So, if you had to pick, though, out of all those levels, what's been your most fun?
It's not on the field, to be honest with you.
Really?
It's talking to the players and coach, man, I really appreciate you, man. You never gave up on me. I love the way you impacted my life. Thank you so much. For never giving up on me. Thank you so much for taking me home or feeding me. Those things mean to me more than any game that we can ever win.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what's important to me.
Yeah. When that's, like you said, when your greater goal is making godly men and being an influence on them, that's going to be your shining moment, right? That's incredible. Maurice, thank you so much for joining us today. I thank you for being candid and open with us. I thank you so much for your insight on football and life and how, we might find some reconciliation in all this. I don't know if this podcast is going to help anybody, but I do think that hopefully it shows that we can have a conversation. And obviously we didn't dig in completely into every nuance. We only have a limited amount of time, but I do want our viewers, listeners to know that if you have a question, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. If you have a specific question for Maurice, I'll send it to him and he'll see if he can answer it for you. We just appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate my good friend Maurice being here. Love you, brother, and good luck on the season to come.
You too, brother.
And just appreciate everything that you're doing and all that the impact that you're making on these young men. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.